BBC TV18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.
Budget preparations hit fever pitch. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley meets state finance ministers. States seek a bigger pie of tax revenues and higher infrastructure spending to spur growth.
Finance Ministry pushes the target for zero effective revenue deficit by 1 year to March 31st, 2016. Says we'll spend only 40,000 crores in fuel subsidy in FY17 as against 63,000 crores in FY15, but expects spending on food and fertilizer subsidies to rise steadily over the next 2 years.
A positive start to the new series on the Lal Street markets clock marginal gains in a range-bound session. Nifty regains 8,200, but volumes remain tepid.
And records continue to tumble on Wall Street. US shares rise for the 7th straight session as they march into uncharted waters. Crude prices remain steady. Brent holds above $60.
After Airtel decided to charge customers for internet calls, other telcos looking at the impact. Sources say Vodafone and Idea unlikely to follow suit. That's an exclusive.
Vishal Sikka calls for a cultural shift to revive Infosys. The CEO wants the IT major to change its mindset to become an innovation-driven company. Also adds that Infosys will remain a service company, but one that uses more software.
Microsoft's top boss Satya Nadella in India throws his weight behind the government's Digital India and Clean India drive, meets the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister and the IT Minister in New Delhi, promises to ramp up investments.
Gasping for breath, SpiceJet's management and former promoter Ajay Singh meet aviation ministry officials. Singh says $200 million investment from 2 private equity investors will be finalized next month.
And on the hour, mega deals, price control and regulatory tussles. It has been an eventful 2014 for the pharma industry. We rewind and take a look back with a special report.
And 44-year-old Devendra Fadnavis creates history by becoming the first BJP Chief Minister of Maharashtra. He is our Newsmaker of the Year tonight.
Years ago, on this very day, 2 monster waves in the Indian Ocean wreaked havoc across many Asian countries. Over 2 lakh people died, 6,000 lost their lives in India alone.
Well, Nantara, 10 years have flown past, but scars still remain. Good evening and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Surabhi Upadhyay and with me, Nantara Rai in the Delhi studios.
A special report on the 10th anniversary of the tsunami is coming up for you in India Business Hour. But first up, let's talk about today's trading action. A range-bound session with very little participation kept the Lal Street on a tight leash. The Nifty regained 8,200, gaining about 26 points. Sensex gained over 30 points in what was a very lackluster session. Mid-caps marginally outperformed.
All right, the top story this evening. Budget preparations are all in full swing. Today, the Finance Minister, Arun Jaitley, met state finance ministers. This comes ahead of the first full-fledged budget from the Modi government scheduled for February. Arun Jaitley spoke to the media post that meeting and said that state FMs today, while reaffirming their commitment to the GST, also expressed concern over the compensation mechanism. Let's listen in.
Some states even went to the extent of suggesting that the FRBM limit be raised for this year in order to infuse liquidity into the market. Most states also wanted decentralization of the CSS, the centrally sponsored schemes, so that they could be attuned more to the state requirements. Several states made suggestions with regard to their state-specific issues. Now, we will take all these suggestions into consideration while formulating our policies in relation to the budget.
So to talk about the specific demands made by states, we have Sapna Das joining in. Sapna, you've been tracking this meeting all through the day. Take us what states have been saying and what sort of suggestions has the Finance Minister got?
Well, the sessions are wide and varied, and this is part of the pre-budget consultation with the state FMs. What happens actually is that there's always a demand, a set of demands on the centrally sponsored schemes, because that's where the states are heavily involved. So here again, the demand, there's a reiteration for decentralization of CSS, as the Finance Minister himself has pointed out. This should be as per the specifications of state demands. So that's one. Second, of course, they need a higher devolution from the formula that has been devised by the 14th Finance Commission in terms of the share of central taxes that will go out from the centre's to the state governments. This is a formula that will roll out from April 1, 2015 over the next 5 years. So states are asking a higher share of that. Third, there is also a very specific demand in terms of stepping up spending, not just for the infra sector, but also for social sector schemes run by various state governments. There's a very clear-cut demand on that, and to that extent, some of the state governments, like say Punjab and a couple of them more, have asked for some kind of relaxation, like UP, in the state fiscal deficit limits, which are advised under the FRBM Act, as also the 13th Finance Commission. So that's 3% right now of the state GDP, that is the SGDP. These states have demanded a 0.5 to 1% relaxation on that front. So that's pretty significant. Whether that will happen or not, it's pretty unlikely, but whether it will happen or not is something that we'll come to know only much later. Apart from this, a very large part of the discussion was actually centered on GST. Almost all the state governments have raised various kinds of concerns on GST. Of course, consensus overall on the GST rollout. But you look at some of the demands that have come, like Tamil Nadu is saying that, the revenue neutral rates, the threshold limits, the compensation mechanism has not been discussed with any of the state governments. This should be done before the GST rollout actually happens. Gujarat is saying the 1% additional tax that the government has agreed that manufacturing states can levy to compensate for the revenue loss, that should be actually continued in perpetuity. That's a kind of suggestion that they have made, and they left it to the GST Council to decide the timeline. They're not happy with a 2-year timeline. So a lot of comments are coming on the GST front. It also shows that although there is overall consensus, there are a lot of nitty-gritties that have yet to be resolved on this front, and they've actually advised the Union Finance Minister not to rush into this major tax reform.
Sure. Sapna, you also were tracking the other developments today for us, where the government has, given some indication of its expenditure plan. It's very interesting how they've pushed back their revenue deficit, zero revenue deficit target by 1 year. Take us through what the different subsidy numbers are looking like and how the overall picture stacks up.
Well, that's the effective revenue deficit that we are talking about. That means basically the revenue deficit number minus what the government spends on creation of capital assets. So it's not revenue deficit per se. That's a different target, and this effective target is different. However, it's important because the timeline has been pushed by 1 year. This also shows that there is pressure on the government's revenue accounts. So that's one element of the story. But the other element on the subsidy side, as you're asking, and rightly so, petroleum subsidy is showing a downward projection, FY17. That's what the kind of numbers that the government has put out in Parliament. This is mandatory under the FRBM Act. They do it every year. So these are 2-year rolling targets on the expenditure front. 40,000 crore is what they're expecting by FY17 in the petroleum subsidy. A huge saving as compared to the current year's estimate. But the story is not that good on the side of fertilizer and food. Food subsidy expecting a sharp spike, 1,20,000 crores by FY16. 1,30,000 crores by FY17, obviously because most of the states are not on board right now to roll out the Food Security Act. Hence, once more and more states come on board, the subsidy element is going to go up. The spend is actually going to go up. So that's the kind of number that they're talking about. These are projections as of now. Last but not least, fertilizer, 85,000 crores by FY17. That is also a step up from what the budget estimates are for the current year. In fact, quite a major step up. So here the government is very specific that it's probably time to roll out pricing reforms in the urea sector particularly. And mind you, fertilizer is one sector where the government has not had really much time to give attention. They've been very caught up with the fuel subsidies, other rationalization measures. They're also expecting the interim report of the Expenditure Management Commission by 15 January. So some of those recommendations might actually see some kind of shape in the coming budget as well.
So that's the government's plans to try and meet that daunting challenge of 4.1% fiscal deficit. Thanks, Sapna, for joining us with all of those stories. And, just a few days back, Sapna was the one who exclusively reported on CNBC TV 18 that forget FY15, but the government is likely to stick to its fiscal deficit target even for FY16, and that's 3.6%. Today, the Minister of State for Finance, Jayant Sinha, confirmed our story. Sinha also said the 14th Finance Commission suggestions of hiking the tax devolution to the states will exert some strain on the government's balance sheet. Not just that, the 7th Pay Commission suggestion to raise salaries for central government employees will also impact finances. Here's more from the Minister.
Well, we have laid out a fiscal consolidation roadmap which demonstrates the sound economic management that we have undertaken since our government came to power. And as you know, as part of that, we have said, the 4.1% fiscal deficit going down to 3.6%, going down to 3%, which will bring us in line with the FRBM. And we are very much still on that roadmap. We think it's very important to be able to demonstrate that fiscal prudence that the Honourable Finance Minister has spoken about, and that establishes our credibility globally as well.
All right, so promising to stick to those targets there. The government is now pulling, of course, all stops out to get states on board for the goods and services tax. And the chairman of the Central Board of Excise and Customs is quite confident that GST will be rolled out by April 2016. The CBEC chief believes that GST will increase the tax base quite significantly. However, he also adds that it will throw up new challenges for his own department when it comes to the rollout of GST.
GST, the tax base is being widened separately. The stage of taxation for the indirect central excise levy, which is now at the manufacturing stage, that is going to go up to the supply stage, that is at the to the retail level. So there is going to be a significant increase in the tax base as well as the economic activity which we are going to tax now, which we are going to be responsible.
Well, no gain, no pain. The tax department is going to have to work very hard to get all the technology and the back end in place to get the GST rollout on 1st April 2016. Moving on, Jyotsna Suri, chairperson and managing director of Bharat Hotels that runs the luxury chain, the Lalit, recently elevated and appointed as the president of FICCI. Here's Jyotsna Suri on her expectations from Arun Jaitley come the 2015 budget.
Well, we are hoping that there is some rationalization on the expenditure, particularly the subsidies, rationalization on the tax regime. Also, the GST has already been set into motion, and what we are looking at is an implementation of a GST which will subsume all other taxes, will also cover every sector, and would be of a prudent number.
All right, moving on. Satya Nadella, who is in India to spend his first Christmas with family after taking up the top job at Microsoft, met Prime Minister Narendra Modi today. This was the second courtesy call of the Microsoft CEO to PM Narendra Modi. Nadella had met the Prime Minister earlier during his first India visit after taking charge as the boss of the top software company. Nadella also met IT Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad today. The tech honcho is looking forward to being a part of Digital India. Here's how he's planning to do that.
The world is moving to be more of a cloud and mobile world. Our engagement on both of those fronts is what you will see. If you look at what we are trying to do with the cloud, one of the unique capabilities that we have is to help build data centers that are locally available here, but yet are world-class infrastructure. But on top of that, we also have our server infrastructure, which enables every business to have their own flexibility in standing up their data centers. So that's an area of huge focus.
The way he has decided to be engaged in the whole concept of Digital India, which is deeply appreciated. I warmly reciprocate all his gestures and also understanding. I have suggested to him that we are keen if he has certain concrete suggestions to give for further improvement of Digital India concept. We are quite willing to accept. We have talked about the concept of other products which are going to launch in India, including from digital locker to cloud to data centers.
Satya Nadella met with the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, the Telecom Minister, said there were two key themes in all of those meetings: Make in India as well as Digital India. And the other big headline, Satya Nadella offering to the Indian government that Microsoft would like to help the government digitize its records and even safeguard it. That's very important. in light of all of the hacking incidents that we've been reading about over the last few days. Now, as 2015 comes closer, Vishal Sikka, the new man at the helm at Infosys, is rolling up his sleeves to turn around Infosys. Speaking to global advisory firm HFS, Vishal Sikka said his biggest challenge in 2015 would be changing the mindset at the company. Purnima Murli and Kritika Saxena have that story.
He took over the reins of Infosys in June this year, and while his stint at IT Major so far has been a good one, Vishal Sikka believes that the biggest challenge for the company in 2015 will be the ability to being open to new ideas and innovation. But he's confident it will be done. Sikka told global advisory firm HFS, and I quote, "Transforming ourselves culturally and operationally into a company driven by innovation, driven by delivering much more value add, more innovative services, that requires a very serious change in mindset, in our offerings and in our operational processes. It will be difficult, but we have to do it. And the good news is that we are already starting to see signs of success in using that approach." End quote. Given his 12-year-long association with software products major SAP, Sikka's critics say he may turn Infosys, a pure-play services company, into a products firm. To this, Sikka says, and I quote again, "Infosys is a service company and will remain a service company. Our goal is to stay a service company and deliver. We want to deliver more and more value using IP, reusability of components and capabilities across engagements. We will be a services company that uses more and more software." But even before this clarification, most analysts have been supportive and appreciative of Sikka's efforts to effect a turnaround at the company.
Vishal's view on the future of IT industry, I think it's probably the farthest and the freshest perspective that the industry has got since the global delivery model. And it is interesting to see that it's Infosys which is pioneering the initiative. Dr. Sikka has hit bullseye as far as reviving the company and industry's fortunes.
Over the last 6 months, Sikka has been dropping numerous hints about where he expects to take Infosys over 2015. But a concrete strategy on the next phase of operation, Renew and New as he calls it, will be outlined only by April next year. And in that roadmap, we'll get a clearer idea of what's going to follow the initiatives he's already put in place at Infosys. From betting big on design thinking to changing the DNA of the company by asking employees to put the customers first. With Purnima Murli in Bangalore, in Mumbai, Kritika Saxena.
All right, from technology to aviation, as the airline gasps for breath, SpiceJet's management and former promoter Ajay Singh met civil aviation ministry officials today. Singh promised to bring in $200 million by next month as he hopes to finalize a deal with 2 private equity investors. But the airline did not name these investors. Sources say SpiceJet could have also sought time for a month's relief from oil dues. Sources say that SpiceJet also sought for a moratorium on paying service tax. The ministry has asked SpiceJet to revert with a firm revival plan and has not made any assurances as yet. Here is the SpiceJet COO speaking after the meeting.
The meetings are always constructive. We appreciate the support that we get from the key stakeholders in the ministry very much. That I can say without any qualms whatsoever.
So there are talks going on of many investors coming into the airlines.
No comments.
Have you submitted a new revival plan? So have you submitted any sort of plan on what
I'm happy to talk about the operation.
All right, so no real details coming out there in that soundbite. Well, there is some more trouble, however, for SpiceJet's promoters. The chief operating officer of Sun TV has been arrested on charges of sexual harassment. Sun TV is the flagship company of the Marans.
Right, so that's the fresh trouble coming in for the Sun Group. On to politics now. So it'll be for the first time since it was formed in 2000, Jharkhand will have a non-tribal chief minister. The BJP Legislative Party elected Raghubar Das as its leader, paving the way for him to become Jharkhand's next chief minister. He has, of course, been a deputy CM in the past. BJP, which has an absolute majority in the state, along with its ally, All Jharkhand Students Union Party, will now stake claim to form the government. The swearing-in ceremony expected in January.
हमारा धर्म बनता है कि हम झारखंड को विकास दें। यहाँ अपार संभावनाएं हैं। यहाँ हम आयरन में हमारे पास है, हमारे पास कोयला है, हम स्टील में हब बन सकते हैं, हम पावर में हब बन सकते हैं, हम एडुकेशन में हब बन सकते हैं। यह काफी पोटेंशियल इस राज्य में, और मेरा यह मानना कि ईमानदारी से सरकार 5 वर्ष चली तो हम महाराष्ट्र के बराबरी में आ सकते हैं, और 10 साल तक चली तो महाराष्ट्र से भी आगे जाने की क्षमता इस राज्य में है।
Meanwhile, there's hectic politicking underway in Jammu and Kashmir over who will form the next government. The PDP has rejected the National Conference's offer of unconditional support. Meanwhile, the J&K governor has asked both the PDP and the BJP to submit a plan for government formation by tomorrow. 3 independent MLAs are saying they will support a secular formation in J&K. PDP won 28 seats in the J&K assembly polls. That's 3 more than the BJP.
Well, Subi, did you ever think that we would see this take place? But like they say, anything is possible in politics.
It's politics.
Abdullah, the National Conference actually offering support to his chief political rival, the PDP.
No permanent friends or foes, Nayantara, as they say in the world of politics. I guess that holds true in J&K also.
Anything is possible. More than 6,000 people were killed in Tamil Nadu in the 2004 tsunami. 10 years after the killer waves claimed many lives, CNN IBN's Anna Isaac travelled to find out what lessons have been learned from the disaster.
I'm at Akkarepete, a small fishing village in Nagapattinam, which bore the brunt of the 2004 tsunami. Nearly 2,000 people were killed in this village alone. And the signs of the devastation are still visible, with broken houses like these. But 10 years later, many families continue to live dangerously close to the sea, with the closest shanty just about 100 meters away from the sea. And this despite the government rehabilitating them, but building concrete structures further away from the coast.
30-year-old Satya was 8 months pregnant when the tsunami hit her village. She gave birth to twins soon after, but chose not to move into the newly built house allocated to tsunami victims.
If we live here, it's comfortable. The house over there is very small. There are no bathroom facilities. We have our children here as well.
60-year-old Arjunan lost his wife 10 years ago in the tsunami. A fisherman, he says he cannot relocate to a house more than 3 kilometers away, as his life is by the sea.
How can I leave this place and go to a new place? I can't live there. There are very little facilities there.
This is Tatanagar, a colony built for the victims of the 2004 tsunami. Many, like Nagavali, who've lived here for 9 years, say their disaster-resistant houses have already developed cracks.
The water seeps into the house through the cracks. It forms puddles in the house. It has been bad for us the last 3 years.
But beyond the housing troubles, the question is, 10 years on, is the state prepared for another disaster? A 2013 CAG report found that several early warning systems in Tamil Nadu were non-functional. This was evident in many coastal districts like Cuddalore and Kanyakumari. All 30 early warning systems in Nagapattinam were also not in working condition. Last year, then Chief Minister Jayalalitha announced a coastal disaster risk reduction project of nearly 1,500 crore rupees with the support of the World Bank. While the 5-year project is still underway, one hopes that both the state and its people will be better prepared for another national disaster. With camera person Sarvanan and Anna Isaac in Nagapattinam, Yash Jha.
Will we ever be better prepared for disasters, whether natural or man-made? Nayantara, I think that question continues to haunt.
And on that rather somber note, we're going to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks for watching. See you back on Monday.
CNBC TV 18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.